The war had stretched on for years, swallowing lives and reshaping destinies. But inside the forward operating base, the woman was little more than a shadow. She worked in the armory, surrounded by racks of rifles, boxes of ammunition, the smell of oil and gunpowder clinging to her uniform. Day after day, she handed out weapons to battle-hardened soldiers, logged serial numbers, cleaned barrels, and locked everything back into its place. No one looked at her twice. To most, she was background noise in a world of chaos, but beneath her quiet exterior, something restless lived inside her. She studied every weapon she touched, memorized their weight, their balance, the way they kicked when fired. She had never seen combat, never walked outside the wire, but in her silence, she was preparing. Then one evening, as the sun bled red into the desert sky and men laughed over their scars, a sniper tossed a challenge her way. He bet she couldn't even load his rifle properly, let alone hit a target at 3,800 meters, a shot so long it lived in the realm of legends. His laughter was cruel, his words dismissive. But for her, they lit a spark that would change everything. The sniper was infamous in the unit, a man whose reputation carried whispers of impossible kills, shots taken across valleys and through storms where no sane soldier would even try. His rifle was an extension of his body, custom-built, perfectly balanced, a weapon of myths. When he placed it on the table in front of her, the others laughed, expecting her to fumble, to be humiliated. She ran her fingers along the stock, the cold steel, the glass of the massive scope, her movements precise. The laughter faltered. She worked the bolt, checked the chamber, adjusted the scope as though she had done it 1,000 times in secret. No tremor touched her hands. When she finally looked up, her eyes were steady, unblinking, and her voice was calm. "Show me the target!" For a moment, silence fell. The sniper smirked, masking his unease, and pointed toward a marker glinting faintly in the distance. It was a shot that separated mortals from legends. Around them, the soldiers leaned in, cigarettes glowing like fireflies, waiting for her failure. But when she lay down on the gravel, nestling the rifle into her shoulder, the mocking grins turned into stares. She breathed slow, controlled, her cheek pressed against the stock. She had no spotter to call the wind, no advanced computer to calculate drift. All she had were her instincts, sharpened by years of quiet observation, by a hunger no one else could see. Through the scope, the world narrowed to a shimmer in the desert heat. At 3,800 meters, the target was no bigger than a speck of dust against the horizon. The wind tugged at the flags, the Earth's curvature itself bending the odds against her. Men whispered behind her, placing bets, their words laced with cruel amusement. But she shut them out. She remembered the manuals she'd read in stolen moments, the soldiers she'd overheard, the fragments of knowledge pieced together in silence. She adjusted for wind, for distance, for gravity itself. Then the world went still. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared, the recoil slamming into her body. Dust rose in the distance, and for a heartbeat it seemed she had missed. The laughter began to bubble up again, until the metallic ping of the target echoed across the valley. The base fell silent. The laughter died in their throats. Every soldier froze, staring at the target through binoculars, disbelief etched on their faces. She had struck it. At 3,800 meters, with no spotter, no support, she had done what most trained marksmen never could. The sniper's smirk vanished, his jaw tight as he studied her in silence. For her, it wasn't triumph, but inevitability. She lowered the rifle, her expression unchanged, as though hitting the impossible was simply another task in her day. The silence broke into shouts, some cheering, others protesting it was luck, a fluke, a miracle. But when the sniper demanded she try again, she simply lay back down. She adjusted her aim, slower this time, and fired once more. The echo returned, the sharp metallic song of a second hit. The men's bravado shattered, fear and awe mingled in their eyes. This wasn't luck. This was something else, something dangerous. She had crossed an invisible line, and now nothing about her life, or theirs, would ever be the same again. Word of her shot spread through the base like wildfire. Some called her a prodigy, others whispered rumors that she'd been trained in secret, that she had a past no one knew about. The sniper who had mocked her avoided her gaze now, his arrogance cracked. For the first time, The men looked at her not as background noise, but as a threat, a presence that shifted the balance of their world. She returned to the armory the next day, silent as ever, but the atmosphere was different. Soldiers who once ignored her now watched with wary respect. The commander summoned her, demanding answers she couldn't or wouldn't give. All she said was that she had learned by watching, by listening, by refusing to waste the hours others threw away. Beneath her calm, though, something darker burned. For years she had been overlooked, underestimated, caged within walls of routine. Now the cage was cracking, and with every rifle she touched, with every whispered rumor of her impossible shots, her hunger grew. She had tasted power, and she could never go back to silence. It wasn't long before her skill was tested again, this time not in jest. A convoy came under attack miles from the base, pinned down by insurgents hidden across a valley. The unit scrambled, their best sniper out of reach when someone said her name. At first the idea was dismissed, but desperation erodes doubt. They handed her the same rifle, pointed her toward a rooftop, and told her the range was impossible. She didn't argue. She climbed into position, her movements fluid, her silence terrifying. She lay down, scanning the horizon through the scope, the chaos of battle rumbling below. Bullets cracked through the air, explosions shook the ground, but she did not flinch. Through her glass, the enemy came into focus, shadows dancing across ridges, muzzle flashes betraying their positions. She inhaled deeply, the storm of fear and noise fading to nothing. One shot, then another, and another. Each target fell, each kill confirmed at ranges others dared not attempt. The battlefield bent around her. Soldiers who had mocked her now whispered prayers at her back. In minutes, she turned a slaughter into survival. From that day forward, the whispers followed her everywhere. Some said she was cursed. Others swore she was blessed. The sniper who had once mocked her avoided her completely, unable to bear the weight of her presence. She remained in the armory, still issuing weapons, still cleaning rifles. But now she was something more, something that unnerved even the hardest men. Her legend spread across units, across bases, reaching ears that should never have heard her name. With legend came danger. Higher commands took interest. Enemies began to hunt for the nameless woman who could turn the tide of battles with a single shot. Her calm became her armor, her silence her shield, but inside her a storm raged. She had been invisible, and invisibility was safe. Now, eyes burned into her wherever she went, and in those eyes she saw hunger, fear, and questions she could never answer. The war gave her no choice but to keep proving herself. Missions blurred into one another, rooftops and valleys echoing with the crack of her rifle. Every shot carried weight, every kill carving deeper into her soul. Soldiers cheered her, enemies cursed her, and yet she felt only emptiness. The longer the war went on, the more she became a weapon instead of a woman. Nights were haunted by the faces of those she felled through glass, their eyes staring back at her across impossible distances. But every morning, she returned to the scope, to the rifle, to the silence. Her legend grew, but so did the darkness inside her. She wondered if the sniper's cruel bet had been her curse, if in mocking her, he had awakened something that was never meant to be unleashed. The men called her invincible, but in her dreams she saw herself shatter into fragments of steel and smoke. She had become the very thing she once feared. An echo of death whispered across the desert. One evening, after another mission where her shots had saved countless lives, she returned to the base and found the sniper waiting for her. His arrogance was gone, replaced with a haunted respect. He told her he had seen many shooters, but none like her. His voice trembled as he admitted that his bet had been foolish, that in trying to mock her, he had unleashed something terrifying. She looked at him, her face expressionless, and said nothing. Silence was her answer, heavier than any words. He walked away, shoulders heavy with guilt, while she stood alone in the armory, surrounded by rifles that now felt more like chains than tools. She knew the truth. The war would end someday, but the darkness she had embraced would never leave her. She had crossed a line no one could return from, and though the world might remember her as a savior, she knew herself only as a ghost who had traded humanity for precision. Years later, when the war finally cooled and the guns fell silent, Her name was nowhere to be found in the official reports. The records spoke of victories, of missions saved by impossible shots, but they never named the woman in the armory who had carried the weight of those triggers. She had disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only rumors, myths, and scars carved into the memories of those who had served with her. The sniper who once mocked her told the story in hushed tones, his voice trembling each time he described the first metallic echo at 3,800 meters. To him, she was not just a soldier, she was a reminder that power often comes from the overlooked, from the ones ignored until the world forces them to rise. To the soldiers she saved, she was both a savior and a ghost. But to herself, she remained only silence, forever carrying the burden of the shots that had made her a legend and destroyed the person she once was. Thank you for watching this story on Armed Forces Stories. If this tale moved you, if it left you thinking about the shadows soldiers carry and the power that can rise from silence, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Armed Forces Stories for more powerful accounts of courage and survival.